you learnt a lot on how to manage people and how to, be consistent and it's where I first learnt that you've got to be able to be trusted.
Yeah.
And because that even in uncomfortable conversations, trust is the key element. So, that's where I learnt that. So
I'm Matt Cooper and this is Bite Sides. Welcome to the latest edition of the Ausfine Bite Sides podcast. This is a really special one because of the person we have with us today. Very special to me because he was there at the very beginning of our interaction, relationship, friendship with Domino's Pizza. I'd like to introduce Mr. John Harney.
Thanks, Matt. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks very much.
You almost said that with sincerity. Fantastic to have you here, mate, because, believe it, you have been a big part of my professional life and it's been fantastic to share a bit of your journey as well, although somewhat peripheral, I'm sure. But I'm really interested to get into that, into your insights in that front row seat of the world of Domino's Pizza. But before we get there, as usual, the beginning is a very good place to start. Tell us about you. Where did you grow up? And how did you eventually come to Domino's Pizza? But what was the routing to get there?
Yeah, good question. Not a direct route. Born a little town north of Bendigo on a wheat farm. Born with asthma and hay fever, so I was never going to be a wheat farmer.
I agree.
So first big decision in my life was made for me, which I was not going to be the next generation on my, I think we had by then third generation farm up there.
Right. How did that conversation go with
pretty
mum
quick.
and dad?
Well, there's 4 boys in the family, so there was 4 farmers to pick from. So, I was never on the cards. So it was education for me. So went and studied engineering. 6 years to do a 4-year degree, but a lot of fun.
Scenic route.
I'm a bit of a rubbish engineer, actually, as it turned out. So very quickly moved into management and supervision because I was not too good with the engineering stuff. So went to the mines in WA as my first job, pretty instantly in charge of crews and staff. And so naturally moved into management into projects with an engineering background, moved into manufacturing and is usually the case, engineers or manufacturing people end up in procurement because they're usually buying all the stuff to do a project and stuff like that.
Okay, so let's go back. What year was that you went into the mines?
1986.
1986, across the WA into the mines and managing a mine and people.
Well, managing a workshop, 80 unionised Boilermakers. Well... And I was straight out of uni. I had...
How old were you?
I was 26.
I'm sure those Boilermakers would have taken it very easy on you, John.
Yeah, no, they were gentle.
I'm sure.
They were understanding.
Very understanding.
And it was a good lesson. Let's just go with that as a learning experience.
You would have learned a lot, I would have thought.
Yes.
In people management.
And in a very short amount of time.
Yes.
So I think we had our first strike about 2 seconds after I took over. So it was an education.
Did you really? Did you have it?
Oh, they marched. Very unionised, 80s mine sites.
Yeah.
But it was if I'm honest, it was probably where I learned a lot of my management skills. So it was a great education.
It is a baptism of fire.
Absolutely. In the middle of, we were inland from Port Hedland.
Oh my goodness.
In the middle of the desert. It was an education in every sense of the word.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so job number 1 and by the end of it, you're pretty hardened to what can get thrown at you as far as managing people goes.
Yeah, it was extreme, and it was back before fly in, fly out. So
you're out there and you can't get away from them.
Correct. If you had a
Yeah.
stoush at the mine site, it was a stoush back at the mine, at the town. So, yeah, you learnt a lot on how to manage people and how to, be consistent and it's where I first learnt that you've got to be able to be trusted.
Yeah.
And because that even in uncomfortable conversations, trust is the key element. So, that's where I learnt that. So,
How long do you think from the time you walked through the door before you felt like you had a bit of that trust?
yeah, it's an accelerated environment, a mine, because everything's just weirdly bigger, not just the equipment. So it probably took me,
reactions.
And so probably a year in, which is nothing in the usual timeline of a job, but there it just everything happens fast. So, yeah.
Well, a year is not taking a step back away from that comment around the focused environment, but a year you're still 28 and
yeah, I was still very young.
Very young.
Yeah.
Okay, so I derailed that a little bit. So into procurement at the mine site and...
Well, no, not then. So that's where I started sort of moving into people management, and that's without pissing in my own pocket. It's where I realised my skills are around people rather than machines and engineering. So from there, met my wife there
At the mine?
At the mine, she was a truck driver. She just finished uni and needed a bit of extra cash, and they like to have women come up and drive the trucks because they'd look after them. $1 million truck. So so there were 500 single blokes and 10 single women and 5.
Jeez, you've done well with that ratio.
Well, she had a lot of fun. And 5 of the women were gay.
Sure she did. Well,
Anyway,
she's got the pick of the bunch, that's for sure.
So I don't know where we go with that, but 2 years up there. Sort of supervisory roles. Then we went backpacking around Asia and Europe for a year, and then came back and got a job with Unilever in Melbourne.
Yep.
At the old Port Melbourne site.
Yep.
And that's when really started to move into projects, and that was the early days of my procurement career. And then we shifted a plant when they were shutting down that Port Melbourne site. Shifted it to Malaysia. We relocated to Malaysia for 7 years. And
KL?
KL. And that's where I really started to get into sort of probably industrial procurement, for want of a better word, and started to build that, I guess, understanding of partnerships. I can probably say for this, Unilever, not exactly a partnerships-driven organisation. So
it was actually going to be my question that I was going to come back to, but obviously you've gone from a fairly intense environment, being putting aside the travel, but the mine, very people-based, relationship-based, build a trust, coming to a huge conglomerate, which I imagine very corporatised and not people-driven at all.
No.
So how did you find that transition?
Well, yeah, it was quite probably where I started to realise what I think I believed mattered, and I was in an environment where it didn't matter to the organisation. So, yeah, that was a challenge. But partnerships is internal as well as external. Like, it's not always about building it with a supply partner. I mean, that's important. There's no doubt about it. But you got to get your partnerships right internally as well. And one thing about Unilever is it's so big, a lot of it's internal. So certainly I learned a lot about how to get the most out of teams, how to motivate. And again, I was running teams in factories and not quite as unionised as the mines, but same challenges apply. And then I went to KL, and I was, for a short time up there, I was in charge of the manufacturing facility. So it's all Malay workers, and another great lesson in life, because someone once asked me, they said, how the hell do you go from a workforce in, either the Pilbara or Port Melbourne to Kuala Lumpur? And it was another great lesson in that, we're all the same across the planet in that everybody wants to be heard, everyone wants to be respected, everyone wants to feel like their opinion matters. Whether you're a Boilermaker in Kuala Lumpur or a Boilermaker in Port Melbourne, you're motivated by the same things, and leadership still means the same thing in those situations. So despite all the cultural differences, getting a team to perform actually requires the same empathy and finesse as it does anywhere else. So it was a great lesson for me anyway.
Did you find with the move to KL, so we're not early 90s?
97.
Oh, mid to late 90s,
Yeah.
okay. Culturally speaking, did you find that the Malay workers were less inclined to speak up? Was it more hierarchical and it took more to get out of them?
Yeah, I mean, it does. And you're right, that is a cultural difference, a sort of almost blind respect for well, I wouldn't call it leadership, for authority.
Yep, and hierarchy.
But what you have in a Malay society is, 60 to 70% of the population's Malay, which is Bahasa Malay. Say 60%, 30% is Chinese, 10% is Hindi. So you've got three very different cultures. And then you overlay an expat community, which are also varied too, Brits, Dutch, Aussies, Americans. So, one size doesn't fit all. And maybe that's the key to great leadership is you just can't assume. You can't stereotype, I guess. You can't assume that every Malay is quiet and unassuming and just will quietly do what they're told. You've worked in Japan.
Yep.
We can all fall for the trap where you think the Japanese are just compliant.
Yep.
They think, they have opinions, they might voice them differently, and there might be a process with which they do that. But they're not blindly agreeing with everything the white guy says in the corner.
Very, very.
You've learned that the hard
Very,
way.
very true.
Yeah.
It's been in many meetings where everyone's nodding, and not one of those nods mean
one
yes.
agrees. Not one agrees.
Not one of those nods mean yes.
I remember, the Japanese hate, and they nod their head at the same time. When I first went up there, I thought, they're agreeing.
Yeah.
They're just letting you know they heard what you said.
I heard what you said.
They don't
Completely
agree with
disagreed
it.
with it, but they heard it.
So, challenging.
No, very true. Okay, so we continue on with the timeline.
Okay.
So we're in KL, 1997. Then where do we go to next?
97 KL, finished up with Unilever. It was a classic. I love this. McKinsey got involved and told us to centralise. So that's why we shut down Port Melbourne, shifted everything to Malaysia, going to make everything in Malaysia. Mm-hmm. 5 years later, we need to shift everything back to the So I finished
Was
up
that
at
McKinsey
that.
again?
Yes.
It was, both times.
Both times. Got to centralise, got to decentralise. That's just classic. So we came back and decided to move to Brisbane because we'd got used to the hot weather of KL.
Didn't want to come back to...
So came back to Brisbane, thought I'd make my fortune flipping properties. Didn't, and answered an ad in the local paper when ads were in newspapers, asking for a purchasing manager. Didn't even say Domino's, and that was 2004.
2004.
Had a couple of interviews, and got the job.
Okay, so this is the bit where I want to get the teeth into it. Your journey through the evolution of Domino's and your front row seat to that, and involvement. Not that you're a passive observer, but that you're definitely involved deeply in it. But so 2004, tell me what Domino's Pizza looked like.
Yeah, it's almost hard for me to remember. We had 200 stores in Australia, which meant Pizza Hut was bigger than us. Pizza Haven had 100. We were not top dog in any way, shape or form. So I joined in November 2004. The main reason was our international expansion was starting. We just bought some stores in Wellington. So we're off.
You're off.
And my job was...
Across the Dutch.
Across the Dutch. And my job was to set up a supply chain and start to build some relationships over in New Zealand, which I'd never worked in New Zealand at all. And that was the beginning. So that was November.
Sorry, can I just ask one real quick question? 200 stores, where were they primarily? Were they all Australia-wide?
None in Melbourne.
None in Melbourne.
We were just cracking Melbourne. That was the toughest pizza market, and you guys know this is a great market for pizza. Not chain pizza, just independents, etc.
Sure.
Immigration has given you great food down here. So heavy Queensland, heavy Sydney, and a little bit starting in WA. It was sort of both sides of the country. But 200 stores, of which I think 100 of them were already in Queensland, so the other 100 were spread. So early days. And then March the following year, so 4 or 5 months later, we floated on the exchange. I didn't know, when I got hired, I wasn't aware that process was in play.
It's been listed for that long. I didn't realise that was 2005.
20-year anniversary last year.
Okay.
So listed, March or May, and we listed for $2 a share. $1.80 actually.
$1.80.
Should have bought.
So put that along with their the property flipping.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have done that.
Missed opportunities. Yeah. I've had a few. So floated 05. Then 06 we bought France and the Netherlands. And so that first 3 years was just roller coaster stuff. And, we went from a private company to public. That's a roller coaster in any business.
Oh yeah.
Let alone one that's trying to double, triple its size in a heartbeat. So launched into Europe, sent a couple of guys over there to run it. That was 06. Just trying to remember the timeline. We bought Belgium while we were there, so that was sort of filling in the gaps, if you like. We got Japan in 2013. We got Germany in 2016. Then we went to Taiwan 2020, and 21 was Malaysia, Singapore, and Cambodia.
It's activity.
A lot of activity.
What's your takeaway from that? I wouldn't say chaotic, but like very intense period. Yeah. As far as, can you have such a, I was going to say manic, it's probably not manic, but such a period of rapid growth, rapid decision making, whilst doing it still in a considered and profitable way? Do you think that's possible in retrospect?
Yes, it is, and it was. Appreciate at the moment it's tough times for Domino's and fast food generally, I might add. I mean, it's a few winners, as we know. I mean, HJ's is doing really well at the moment, but there's Guzman and Gomez, there's ourselves, there's a lot of players that are struggling, but I think that's more a product of a post-pandemic period. But between the 2010 and 2020, it was absolutely the right thing to do. It's, the QSR game for most players is a high volume, low margin business. So it's a volume game. And this was the way to drive those volumes when, if you quite quickly, you see, not that we've saturated every market, but we're certainly saturated-ish in Australia. But, heaps of runway in Europe and Southeast Asia. So moving into those spots, absolutely the right decision. The challenges, it's not to say it didn't come with problems. I think it was the head of Netflix said the hardest thing to export is culture. And I think we did really well in the early days of putting a couple of very seasoned campaigners out of the Australian business into France and the Netherlands, and they were successful as a result. And then the mistakes we made in some of the other areas is we hung on to an original leadership team when we bought the business. So
right. The legacy from the company you're buying.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's where your culture just grinds to a halt. Because if your leadership's not on board, well, it's impossible to get your teams aligned. And moving fast is a culture. It's not this is the way we do things. It's got to be embedded throughout the entire business.
It's funny you say that, just because one thing we always noted, attending the Domino's rally, over the years was Don was a big advocate of this. You could tell was when he's ever going up to the stage, and I mentioned this on the last podcast, he would run.
Yeah.
He would always run. And I think that's even emblematic of the culture that you wanted through the organisation. We move fast.
Yep, we move fast. Agility was just the name of the game. And so if you have that at the top, but that sort of next layer down, your country leadership or your regional leadership aren't on that train, it just stops there. So we made a couple of blunders, if I'm completely honest, where we maintained original leadership, and we should have just put in some key players that would drive culture. We ultimately did. It just meant we missed a year or two of performance while we got our act together, if you like.
Is there that year and a half, is that recoverable, or are you kind of taking some serious wounds along the way that you can't recover from?
It doesn't do lasting damage, other than you're not performing anywhere near probably in-house expectations. It wasn't doing long-term damage. It just put us behind our plan.
Yeah.
So thankfully it was recoverable, but it was a lesson, and then the next lesson out of that. Sorry, I'm jumping around, so my apologies. But
not at all. This is great.
It's sort of like a footy team. We all watch sport, and the good teams have got a deep bench. They're training up the youngsters to be the next sort of debutants and so on, while the older guys are Scotty Pendle, he's up to 400 games or whatever, but you got to be ready to replace him. That's what you got to have. You got to put people into these roles that bring your culture, and then you got to have their 2IC and 3ICs in play, and that's hard.
Yeah,
because that's constant, and that's not HR. That's management and leadership have got to do that. It's not some HR program, and I think that's also one of our challenges, was just finding, as we grew to 12 different markets, you had 12 leaders, 12 2ICs, 12 3ICs, preferably more, because someone's going to drop out.
Well, for sure.
Constantly breeding that next level of leadership was key. And again, I'm not sure we always got it right, but I think being aware of the need is
and
the
having
first
it
step. On your agenda.
On the agenda, that's right. Getting back to that expansion, Belgium, Netherlands, and the international expansion, and you mentioned culture from a company point of view, but from a country point of view, when you're trying to expand out what is a fairly homogenous offering, how much do you need to change your menu to the local population, or your messaging or whatnot? Like you mentioned France and Netherlands, and I'm going to jump around here a little bit as well, but the French culture always struck me as somewhat not so dissimilar to Melbourne. They want the artisanal offering more so than the mass-produced food. Particularly being American as well, there's probably some anti-American sentiment there as well. But how do you navigate that? Is it some of it you just, this is who we are, and we'll find the people who want us, or is some of it that you are accommodating the local tastes?
I think it's inevitably it's a bit of both, bit of everything. Again, if you come in with a one-size-fits-all, you are screwed. I mean, McDonald's is an outlier in that the Big Mac is the same everywhere, and God bless them, they've done a great job at it. You go below the Big Mac, though, and there's all sorts of local interpretations of McDonald's offerings. Coca-Cola, you get off the black stuff, and the flavours they offer across the country is completely different.
Yeah.
So so even with the guys who we think are one size fits all, sort of aren't. And certainly in pizza, it's one of the beautiful things about pizza is, for an Aussie, it's it's a Hawaiian with pineapple Another podcast just for that.
The pineapple.
The pineapple discussion.
Yeah, pineapple debate. Yeah.
But, you talk to a French customer and the concept of pineapple on a pizza it's not even on the menu.
Yeah.
But to them, having four French cheeses, which is the number one pizza in France, Quatre Fromage, it's a pizza base, it's a creme fraiche white sauce, and then four, camembert, Comte. It's just glorious. But it's still a pizza. And you're right, and you go to the Dutch and they've got, sort of almost a souvlaki meat, shawarma on a pizza. You go to Taiwan and they've got seafood. But it's all pizza.
Yeah.
So, in terms of menu development, absolutely local. How you develop the menu, though, that was consistent. So research, consumer research, finding out exactly what they want, because that does change. How much money they've got to spend, whether it's a value proposition versus a quality proposition. And it's interesting, just to comment on France, everyone does think that every Frenchman eats at a Michelin star restaurant. They don't. There are truck drivers and tradies, and they're living out in the burbs. They're not all living in the Champs-Élysées.
Sure.
And they're looking for a €5 pizza that's a bit of a gut filler. So not everybody's trying to eat this artisanal French cuisine, even in the French market. And that's a lesson for us in Australia.
Yeah.
A Sydney consumer is completely different to a Broken Hill consumer. And you just have to have an offering that manages both,
or even parts of Sydney itself,
within Sydney
and Melbourne.
Good point.
In a Melbourne versus someone further out in one of the housing
absolutely.
estates. Yeah.
You've got your sort of tribes almost, haven't you, across most cities? So
yeah.
So
it's a really good point you make. So if you take a step out, and it sounds from the early days and the international expansion of Domino's, and then over more recent times, that's probably the area where they've really struggled. Well, that's my take on it. I could be wrong. What's changed in that sense? Because I actually didn't realise a lot of the markets that you reeled off, they've been in play for a long time. 2006 for France and the Netherlands, and other European markets not so far behind. And Japan, I think you said 2015?
2013.
2013.
Japan. Yeah.
So 12, 13 years.
And it'd been a Domino's market well before that.
What's changed over more recent times?
Yeah. Recently, it's not a long bow. Pandemic. I don't know how much longer we can keep using COVID as an excuse for anything, but let's use it today.
You can today.
2035. I reckon we'll stretch it till
that's
then.
it? That's the date? Okay. No mention of it beyond 2035.
Obviously for us, and you guys were certainly part of our success during that period, was we blew the doors off. I mean, hot food, delivered, order online. While everyone was scrambling to create those processes, that was our business.
Yes.
This sounds terrible, but we were almost built for a pandemic. And so our sales just exploded. We're almost the only thing you could get delivered initially. So, of course, sales volumes, profitability, share price, everything was going great. Now, as has been well reported, we probably then became victims of our own success. We thought we could do no wrong. We just needed to get bigger and better, or bigger. And so we went hard in every market with store growth and probably too much, too fast, didn't have enough structures in place. Japan's a great example. We doubled the size of that business in 2 or 3 years, but I don't think we had the people or the processes to back that up. So, we made a mistake there. And we've reversed that, and it's one of the things I think it's one of the comments I was going to make at some stage through this was failing fast is the key to growth. People make mistakes, businesses make mistakes, but the key is to recognise it as a mistake and reverse. And I used to work with Unilever, and I always tell this joke, but fast-moving consumer goods. They're not fast-moving. They've never met a consumer in their life.
and it's not good.
It's awesome. But, but what would happen in like most big corporations, someone would make a mistake and then probably sit on it because they're waiting to be promoted to the next role and let the poor schmuck who takes over be the person who cleans it up. Well, we had this advantage where we just had long-term leadership, so we weren't handing it off. So, we had the beautiful thing in Australia anyway. We would launch campaigns on a Monday morning, brand new marketing campaign. And if by the following Friday it wasn't working, Don would pull it off air. This is not working.
Yeah.
Why would we keep flogging this dead horse? And I think although we made mistakes post-COVID, we started to reverse. I mean, the market's really punished us for it. But, we've closed a whole heap of stores in Japan, in Europe as well. We've reset the business, which not everybody does that.
I would say the vast minority do that.
Yeah.
Because there's so many reputations and egos attached to these decisions, they just have to be right.
Correct.
And the ability to build a culture where you can put your hand up and say, I messed up, I made a mistake, is a wonderful culture to build. It's hard. It's hard because it's not natural.
Well, and when you're publicly listed, there's no love. I mean, even though they want you to be honest until they don't give you any credit for it.
Well, it's interesting. When we had Don down for one of our learning lunches, I asked him that question because so often what's right for the business is a long-term decision that's going to take quite a long time to play out, whereas the market is so short-sighted. It's every quarter, what have you done for me lately?
Correct.
I asked him how do you reconcile that, and he gave a good answer at the time, but I think they're counter to each other. Being listed and being able to make those long-term decisions that you're not going to see the result by March.
Yeah, and you're right. They do feel counter, but one of Jack Cowan's favourite sayings is "Don't bet the farm." So the decisions you make, as long as they're not the farm, you can have a successful business and you can be making decisions that take a little time to reach boiling point, but the business is still tracking okay. So you can meet market expectations as well as putting in some strategic stuff. But it's challenging. You got to be, but really hard to do if you're changing your executive team every 3 years.
Yeah.
It's like politics. It's hard to get stuff done if everybody's already thinking about their exit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And their legacy.
Yeah, well,
for their next gig.
They're just CV building. So.
Yeah, it's very, very, very challenging, and you're right. It is one of the advantages of having long tenure executive. A good executive is that you probably don't have too much of an ego attached to incorrect decisions. You know that they happen.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily looking for the next gig because you're so far invested in where you are right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Partnerships. I made this point. We had Beck in on a previous pod, and we made the point around partnerships and what I think is a unique advantage of our relationship with Domino's, and I know I've seen it with every other supplier as well, and you guys call them business partners, is that deep relationship that is established over time with your business partners. Was that already there when you arrived, or was that something that you helped build?
I think it wasn't. I took over from a gentleman who was probably half transactional, half partnerships, if I'm honest. But we were only 200 stores when maybe we were 250 by the time I took over. So it was a very small organisation. I think growth also generated the need for key partners.
Yeah.
As we pushed aggressively in Australia to grow, and you can't do that without people who are sort of at your hip with you as you go into areas you've never been, be it geographies or indeed innovating foods and all that sort of thing. And then, the classic relationship with the one I'm most proud of is the Ausfine Leprino partnership, which basically underpinned our growth globally, because our number one item on our menu is mozzarella, and it was never an issue for us. Any market we went to, we knew we had that squared away. Imagine trying to jump into a new market and your number one item is something you've got to go find.
Yeah, it's a question mark next to it.
It's a question mark.
Yeah.
That was just off the table in a good way.
Yeah. It's, I'm very proud of it as well. Something I'm very, very proud of. And to Leprino's absolute credit, the wonderful partner.
Yeah.
And the willingness to go above and beyond is really remarkable. But Domino's have got a bunch of those type of suppliers who are willing to go above and beyond, much more than is very typical in a business partnership.
Yeah. Well, it becomes a bit chicken and the egg, and Don and I would always talk about this, and the way I would introduce a vendor to Don was they're Leprino-esque.
Yeah.
So once you've got the example, and someone as our group CEO like Don could see all the benefits flowing from it, innovation, security of supply, great relationship, great people, to then be able to bring in others and go, these guys are the pepperoni equivalent of our mozzarella partner, and so on. So it allowed us to build more. It wasn't just a one-off with Leprino. And, you saw examples of it every time we got people together. The fact that we get people together.
Yes.
Because we loved that.
Yeah.
Because then we didn't have to explain to everybody what we were about.
Could do it all
we let you guys talk to each other. They're bastards, don't deal with it.
Especially that John guy.
Yeah, I'd steer clear of him. Yeah. So it sort of becomes self-fulfilling. But, it takes a lot of effort on our side, as it does on our business partner side. It doesn't come easy. And you can't, it's like a plant, you got to keep watering it, but it's, in my experience, it's the only way you can grow.
Yeah, agreed. Mate, this chat is wonderful. We're going over time, okay. But I've just got a couple more questions. First one is market related. So you made the point around the COVID time as well that basically you guys and pizza in general owned delivery. That's now all changed. Yes. You've got the aggregators, and I asked the same question to Beck, but you got the aggregators and you can basically have any meal you want delivered now. Now, it's not to say it's good, but you can in a brown paper bag. Where to for the pizza category in that space, do you think?
I think it's still an opportunity. So post-COVID, you're right. Everyone realised, no one was delivering. If you think back to 2019, you get takeaway Thai. If I'm thinking about my sister in Port Melbourne, you get takeaway Thai in a plastic bag.
Yes.
You get a pizza. Maybe that's it. And just no one was delivering. Couldn't work it out. The technology didn't support it, etc. Getting an order, somebody on a bike or a car. Just fast forward to 23, and everyone's just gone, oh my God, we've just taught a consumer base the quality, the benefits of delivery. So then everyone jumps in, and you're right. We got competitors left, right, and centre. The thing though is, you can get anything delivered, but it's not built to be delivered. And we've all had soggy chips and fish and chips. It's just mush, and it took an hour and a half to get there, and all of that sort of thing. So where Domino's and the pizza industry, or the chain market especially, has got absolute strength in this space is everything we design in that test kitchen is built to be delivered. Pizza actually delivers well if it's done fast. It's rubbish if it takes an hour and a half. But any food is rubbish. But you get it in 20, 25 minutes, which is what we do, it's good. And then every other item, every chicken side, every crusty cheese, crumbed, everything we've worked with you guys on over the years, it's all designed to be delivered. The packaging is designed to be delivered. The arse doesn't fall out of the box and all that sort of stuff. It's super competitive, but Domino's has the opportunity, I believe, to really position itself as a value player again, but absolutely what's the word? It's when you want it and it's there fast
and good.
And it's good and it meets expectations. Yeah, it's not 5-star cuisine, but even if you got 5-star cuisine delivered, it'd be a bit ordinary.
The mussels probably wouldn't travel.
Yeah, I wouldn't be oystering my little Friday nights away. I think there's still absolute room. And you've only got to look at the States. DPZ, Domino's US, is power.
Killing it.
Back to their knitting, doing what they've always done, doing it well, doing it fast. That's the model.
Excellent. 2 more questions.
Okay.
All right. We're nearly done.
That's all right. I'm loving it.
We're nearly done. Leadership. Well, there's kind of 2 sub-questions here. Leadership. What have you found your own leadership style that has worked over the years? And as you kind of touched on early days, and I'm sure you've thought about it. And then the best leader you've ever had, and what were they? What was their attributes that you loved?
My leadership learnings, a style, I guess. I'm a good listener, and I'm empathetic, and I have a healthy disrespect for leadership. So I think you got to have that to be a good leader. You've got to read the room. When you stand up in front of a unionised workshop, a team in Domino's, you should be thinking they've already made their minds up on some stuff. So address it head on. The old, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm just some guy from head office that's going to screw you over. You've got to have that empathy and bring that. If you just preach to them, you're dead in the water. Talk at them. So that's sort of, in a presentation sense. But leadership generally, it's all about collaboration with your team. There's no leader that has ever been successful that has done it 100% on their own. They have got a team behind them, beside them, around them. And if you raise your team up and give credit when credit is due and have that confidence, because a lot of time leaders don't do that because they're worried about their own positions. Back to what we were saying before, they're just worried about the next job. So collaboration, communication, empathy.
And the best leader you've ever had all those things, I assume, or did they have some other?
Well, I'd have to say Don, if you're listening, Don. No.
Send it to him.
I will. But overlay that with passion, and that's what Don had in spades. But Don is also very humble. I know people see the very successful business person and, fancy cars and he dresses really well. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't know something, he's very happy to ask you, what do we do here and what's going on and what's the best play. So I really enjoyed that a long time with Don. And we grew as leaders together, I might add, over that period. So a lot of fun, a lot of challenges. But, he just brought passion. And that was probably my biggest lesson out of the Domino's years.
Fantastic. It's great. It's a great summary. Hell of a ride, roller coaster, but a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
From the outside. All right, last question.
Okay.
What's in the future for John Harney? What are you doing now and what's next?
Well, I call myself Harbren Advisory. So my wife's name's Brennan, so it's Harney Brennan Harbren. Looking to get onto advisory boards, small in the food industry. Currently working with a brand PE team out of New York who are growing a coffee brand in the States, so helping them scale, and also working with another mob that are trying to almost airlift. They're all these PE guys around the world. They're all ex-McDonald's, Starbucks, Chipotle executives who are looking at the UK and Australia and airlifting brands out of Australia in this example and putting them into the States. So taking a QSR from here that's on the up and landing them in the States. And I'm working with them to find targets and make it happen. So a bit of everything at the moment.
Super interesting.
Yeah, no, it is super interesting. But sitting on an advisory board, I would just that would be the end game. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, John, as I expected, I've loved this chat. You're a great man, and thank you for ever since we've known each other. I think it's 15 years or so. You're a wonderful support to me and to Ausfine as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming in today and having a chat.
My pleasure. No, it's been great. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, John.
Cheers, mate.